This story is titled, My Daughter Disowned Me and Told Me That Her Stepfather Was the Man She Deserved as Her Real Father, but later his true color shows up and she is begging me to reconcile. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit. Alright, I didn't think I'd be sharing this, but here I am. I guess I just need to get it off my chest because I don't know who else to talk to. Last year my marriage officially ended. After 16 years, it all came crashing down. I'd been suspecting something for a while. My ex-wife was always on her phone, laughing at messages, coming home later from work, and acting different. When I finally confronted her about it, she denied it at first. Said I was being paranoid and needed to trust her. But I wasn't crazy. Not 2 weeks later, she admitted she was emotionally involved with a guy from her office. Emotionally involved. Like, what does that even mean? I remember her saying, "It's not like I cheated, okay? I haven't slept with him." As if that made it better. To me, she might as well have been halfway out the door already. It didn't take long after that for us to call it quits. She said she wasn't happy in the marriage anymore, that we'd grown apart, and all the usual stuff you hear when someone's got one foot in a new relationship. The divorce process wasn't easy. Even though we kept it mostly civil, there was always this underlying tension. I knew she was texting him, probably seeing him, while we were untangling the life we'd built together. But this story isn't about her. It's about my daughter and me. Our daughter is 14, and she's always been closer to my ex-wife. They did everything together. Spa days, shopping trips, baking cookies. I never minded it before. I figured it was natural for her to gravitate toward her mom. And honestly, we had our own special connection. I used to take her out for ice cream after soccer practice, or we'd stay up late on weekends playing games or watching movies. She'd crawl up beside me on the couch with her blanket, and everything felt perfect. That's what made this whole thing so hard. When the divorce was finalized, my daughter completely pulled away from me. At first, I told myself it was just the shock of the separation. She was probably just upset or confused. I tried so hard to make her comfortable. I kept her room at my new place just the way she liked it. I'd pick her up and take her out for dinner, buy her little gifts I thought she'd like. I tried to be upbeat, never talked badly about her mom, never said a word about the affair. I thought if I showed her that I was still dad, things would go back to normal. But they didn't. Every time I saw her, she was cold. She'd give me one-word answers, barely make eye contact, and spent most of the time on her phone. If I asked about school or her friends, she'd shrug me off like it was a chore to even talk to me. The worst part was seeing her smile fade when she came to my house. Like I could tell she didn't even want to be there. I tried to give her space. I thought maybe she'd come around after a while. But one night, everything changed. It was a random Tuesday. I'd picked her up from school, and she was quiet the whole ride to my place. I figured maybe she'd had a rough day, so I didn't push. When we got to the house, I made her a snack and sat with her on the couch. I asked her how her day went. She just kept scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even there. "Hey," I said gently. "Everything okay? You seem quiet." That's when she sighed, put down her phone, and looked right at me. "Why do you even try so hard, Dad?" I was confused. "What do you mean?" She rolled her eyes. "I mean, Mom's happy now. She deserves to be happy, and her stepdad's name is a much better man for her. Honestly, he's the kind of father I deserve too." I don't even know how to describe how I felt in that moment. It was like my heart stopped beating for a second. "What?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged like she hadn't just said the most painful thing I'd ever heard. "I'm just saying, he's better for Mom, and he's better for me too. He actually cares." I didn't yell. I didn't get angry. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there, stunned, looking at the girl who used to think the world of me, the girl who used to hold my hand and call me her hero. "That's not fair," I finally said. My voice cracked. She shrugged again. "It's true, though." I didn't say another word. I got up and went to the kitchen because I didn't want her to see me breaking down. My hands were shaking as I leaned against the counter, trying to keep it together. She didn't realize it, or maybe she did, but she'd just shattered me. That night, after I dropped her off at her mom's house, I went home and cried. I don't even remember how long. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, just trying to process what she'd said. He's the kind of father I deserve. I kept repeating it in my head. My own daughter, my flesh and blood, thought I wasn't good enough to be her dad. The next day, I couldn't even get out of bed. I called in sick to work because I couldn't face anyone. I felt like a failure, not just as a husband, but as a father. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was I too strict? Was I not there enough? Did I somehow deserve this? My sister was the only one I told. She was furious for me. You gave your everything to that girl, she said. You've always been a good dad no matter what. She reminded me of all the times I'd been there for my daughter, all the times I'd sacrificed my time and money to make her happy. But none of that seemed to matter anymore. After that night, when my daughter told me her stepfather was the father she deserved, something in me just shut down. I didn't make this decision overnight, but it became clear that I couldn't keep living like that, chasing after someone who didn't want me. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like I was banging my head against a wall. No matter what I did, no matter how much I tried, I wasn't good enough for her anymore. And it hurt, more than I can really put into words. I spent the next few days in a haze. I avoided looking at photos of us, but everywhere I turned, there was a reminder. The old picture she'd drawn for me in kindergarten, me with a cape that said, "My superhero dad," the family trip photos on the fridge, her soccer trophies I'd helped her win by coaching her through extra practice. It all felt like a cruel joke now. So I made a decision to protect myself. I know that might sound selfish to some of you, but I had to. I decided I would do only what was legally required of me as a father. Nothing more. No more bending over backward for a relationship where I wasn't respected. The first step was practical: my finances. For years, I'd planned for her future. I had college savings, life insurance, and retirement accounts, all of it set up so she'd be taken care of, no matter what. But now, why should I keep sacrificing for someone who didn't see me as her dad anymore? I sat down one evening with all the paperwork spread out in front of me. The process was harder emotionally than I thought. I stared at her name listed as the primary beneficiary for my 401k and other accounts and felt that familiar pang of guilt, like I was doing something wrong. But then I remembered her words, "He's the kind of father I deserve." I took a deep breath and filled out the forms. I listed my sister as the beneficiary instead. She was the only person who had been there for me through this nightmare. She'd been my support system, listening to me vent and holding me up when I felt like collapsing. She deserved something for that. The next decision was the college fund. I know this is the part where people are going to come at me, but let me explain. I spent years putting money into that fund. I gave up vacations, skipped out on luxuries, and worked overtime to build it. I did it because I wanted to give my daughter every opportunity in life. But what's the point of saving for someone who doesn't even want you in her life? I decided to start using that money for myself. At first, I only dipped into it a little, just enough to fix some things around my house. Then my sister and I started talking about taking a trip. She hadn't been out of the country in years. And honestly, I needed an escape. I needed something to remind me that life wasn't just pain and disappointment. We booked a 2-week trip to Europe. I used a chunk of the college fund to pay for it, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. My sister and I traveled to places I'd only ever seen in pictures: Italy, France, Spain. We ate amazing food, drank too much wine, and laughed like we hadn't laughed in years. For the first time since the divorce, I felt like I was living for me instead of constantly being crushed under the weight of expectations I could never meet. When I got back, I knew there was no turning back. Over the next few months, my daughter started to notice that I wasn't bending over backward anymore. I wasn't trying as hard to engage her in conversation, and I wasn't planning special outings or gifts. I wasn't cruel or unkind. I just stopped trying so hard. I'd pick her up when it was my time, drop her off, and do the basics. I didn't push her to talk or spend extra time together. I just did what was required of me. At first, I don't think she really cared. She was still so absorbed in her mom's new life and the perfect family she had with her stepdad, but eventually she started to pick up on the changes. She'd glance at me during car rides or sit in silence for longer stretches than usual, as if she wanted to ask something but didn't know how. Then one day, everything came to a head. My daughter came over for her usual weekend visit. She spent most of the afternoon in her room, as usual, doing whatever teenagers do on their phones. I was in my office, going through some mail and organizing my paperwork. I didn't realize she'd come in until I heard the sound of papers shuffling behind me. "What are you doing in here?" I asked, startled. She had a handful of documents in her hand. I froze when I saw what they were: the beneficiary changes. "What's this?" she asked, holding up the papers. "Those are personal," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Her face was flushed with anger. "Why is Aunt Sister's name the beneficiary? What happened to me?" I didn't know what to say at first. I hadn't planned for her to find out like this. "I've made some changes," I said quietly. "What does that even mean?" she yelled. "You took me off." You're leaving everything to Aunt Sister's name now? Why would you do that? I sighed, trying to steady myself. Because, daughter's name, I can't keep pouring into a relationship where I'm not wanted. You told me your stepdad was the father you deserve. I heard you loud and clear. Her eyes welled up, but she was too angry to let the tears fall. That's not fair. That's my college money. You're ruining my future. I shook my head. I spent years saving that money because I wanted you to have the best. But you've made it clear where I stand in your life. I'm not going to keep giving to someone who doesn't respect me. You're abandoning me, she yelled. I'm not abandoning you, I replied firmly. I'm still doing everything I'm required to do. But I need to take care of myself too. I can't keep giving when it's just hurting me. She didn't say another word. She just stared at me, shaking her head in disbelief, before storming out of the room. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the desk. I felt torn in two. Part of me wanted to chase after her, to hug her and tell her I'd fix everything. But the other part, the part that was tired of being treated like I didn't matter, knew I had to stand my ground. After my daughter stormed out of my office that day, I sat there for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, but at the same time, it felt empty. I kept replaying her words over and over in my head. You're ruining my future. I'd heard anger in her voice, but there was something else too. Something deeper that I couldn't quite place. Maybe hurt? Maybe shock? I don't know. But I didn't let myself dwell on it for long, because I had to remind myself of why I did what I did. She had made it clear to me for months how she felt about me. I wasn't wanted in her life. I was the lesser parent, the one she barely acknowledged. That stepfather of hers, the guy my ex-wife cheated with, was now the person she held up as some perfect example of what a dad should be. You can't expect me to just keep going after being told something like that, right? I didn't think so. But the confrontation stuck with me. It's one thing to distance yourself quietly, to pull back and take care of yourself. It's another thing entirely to be confronted about it and have to look your kid in the face while you explain your choices. I didn't sleep that night. I kept tossing and turning, wondering if I'd gone too far, if I was being a monster. The next day, I got a phone call from my ex-wife. Now my ex and I had been keeping contact to a minimum since the divorce. We only communicated about our daughter, school events, visitation times, medical stuff. That's it. I knew as soon as I saw her name pop up on my phone that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Sure enough, she didn't waste any time. What the hell is going on over there? She snapped as soon as I answered. No, hello, no polite intro. Just straight to the point. What are you talking about? I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. Daughter's name came home last night in tears. She said you're cutting her off, that you took her off your accounts and spent her college fund. I sighed. I didn't cut her off. I'm still fulfilling my obligations as her father. Obligations? My ex practically spat the word like it was poison. You're her father. She's a child. How could you do this to her? And there it was. The guilt trip I knew was coming. I kept my voice steady, though. I didn't do this to her. I've been doing everything I can for her. I've tried for months to be a part of her life, but she made it clear she doesn't want me there. I'm not going to keep throwing everything I have into a relationship where I'm not respected or valued. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. She's just a kid, my ex shouted. You're the adult here. You don't get to act like this because your feelings are hurt. That stung, I won't lie. My feelings were hurt. They were shattered. But I also wasn't about to let her turn this all around on me. I'm not acting out of spite, I said firmly. I'm protecting myself. She told me her stepdad is the father she deserves. Do you know what that did to me? There was silence on her end for a moment. Maybe she didn't expect me to say that. I don't know. Finally, she replied, quieter this time. She didn't mean that, you know. She's a teenager. She says things she doesn't mean. I let out a bitter laugh. Funny how everyone always wants to excuse what she says and does. But I'm the bad guy when I decide to protect myself. Look, I'm not arguing with you about this. I'm still doing what I'm required to do as her father. But that's all. My ex didn't have a response to that. She just hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, feeling like I'd just been hit by a truck. For the next week, things were tense. My daughter didn't text me, didn't call, and when I picked her up for my visitation time, she didn't even look at me. She sat in the car, headphones on, staring out the window like I wasn't even there. At my house, she stayed in her room the entire time. She didn't eat dinner with me, didn't talk to me, nothing. I'd knock on her door to let her know food was ready, and I'd get a muffled, "I'm not hungry." I didn't push. What was the point? The silence between us was unbearable. It was like living with a stranger. and as much as I tried to convince myself that I was doing the right thing, it didn't stop the guilt from creeping in. I'd sit on the couch at night, staring at the empty seat where she used to curl up beside me, and I'd wonder, was I doing the right thing? Was I making everything worse? I told my sister about all of it. She's the only one who understands where I'm coming from. She's been through similar pain, even though she didn't have kids. You're not a monster, she told me. You're just human. You can't keep giving and giving when it's tearing you apart. You have every right to step back. Her words helped, but they didn't erase the ache I felt. About 2 weeks later, I got another confrontation. This time, it was my daughter herself. She was at my house for the weekend again, still giving me the silent treatment. I was sitting at the kitchen table, paying some bills, when she came out of her room and dropped a stack of papers in front of me. It was the college fund statement. I didn't even know she'd found it. "What is this?" she demanded. Her voice was shaking. I looked up at her. "It's the college fund." "Yeah, the college fund you're taking money out of," she snapped. "Why are you doing this?" "This is my future, Dad." I sighed. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. She hesitated, but finally sat. "I need you to listen to me, okay?" I said. "That money, I saved it because I wanted to give you the best. I worked overtime, skipped vacations, did everything I could to build that for you. But then you told me I wasn't the father you deserved. Do you know how much that hurt?" Her face turned red. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you said it," I replied gently. "And you've spent months treating me like I don't matter. I can't keep giving everything I have to someone who doesn't want me in their life. I needed to take care of myself, too." She didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her expression a mix of anger, hurt, and maybe something else. Regret? Don't know. Finally, she stood up and walked back to her room without another word. And just like that, I felt like the worst person in the world. Point. After that last confrontation, the silence in my house became heavier than ever. My daughter stopped talking to me completely. Not just during visits, but in every way. No texts, no calls, nothing. She came over when she was legally supposed to, but it was like having a ghost in the house. She'd walk in, go straight to her room, and shut the door. If I knocked to let her know dinner was ready, I'd get a short "okay," or sometimes no response at all. It wasn't anger anymore. It was like we had both given up. At first, I tried not to let it get to me. I'd sit on the couch and read a book or watch a show, pretending the house wasn't dead quiet except for the occasional creak of the floor when she moved around. I told myself this was what I wanted. Distance. Less hurt. But I was lying to myself. The silence was suffocating. I'll admit something here I haven't told anyone else. Sometimes, when she was in her room, I'd stand in the hallway and listen for any sign of her. I'd hear faint sounds of music playing on her phone or her pacing the floor, and I'd feel this overwhelming wave of sadness. I wanted to knock, to ask her how her day was, to just hear her voice say something that wasn't cold or resentful, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. This silent war went on for weeks. One day, while my daughter was at my place, my sister came over. She'd brought some groceries and a couple of gifts from her recent trip for work. She's always been the kind of person who loves giving gifts, no matter how small. We were sitting in the kitchen, chatting about random things, when my sister glanced toward the hallway. "She still hasn't come out?" she whispered to me. "Nope," I muttered, not wanting to get into it. My sister sighed and shook her head. "This isn't healthy, you know." "What am I supposed to do, sister's name?" I replied quietly. I tried for months. She made it clear where I stand. I can't force her to care about me. She didn't argue with me because she knew I was right. Instead, she got up and walked to the hallway. Before I could stop her, she knocked gently on my daughter's door. "Hey, sweetie," my sister said softly. "Can I come in?" I heard a faint "yeah" from inside, and my sister disappeared into her room. I stayed in the kitchen, trying not to eavesdrop but also unable to stop myself. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits and pieces of their conversation. "She's just really mad," my sister said later, after she came back to the kitchen. "She feels like you're punishing her." I looked at her, stunned. "Punishing her? How?" "She sees the money stuff as a punishment," my sister replied. "Like you're taking everything away from her because she hurt you. She doesn't get that you're trying to protect yourself." I sighed, rubbing my temples. How do I make her see that? I'm not trying to ruin her life. I'm just done being a doormat. I can't keep letting her treat me like I don't matter. "I don't know," my sister admitted. "But this silence isn't helping either of you." She was right. I knew she was right. That night, I decided to try talking to my daughter. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I figured anything was better than the Cold War we'd been living in. I knocked on her door, and for once, she didn't ignore me. "Come in," she said, though her voice was flat. I opened the door and found her sitting on the bed, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at her phone. I sat down on the edge of the bed, leaving space between us. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Finally, I spoke. Can we talk? She shrugged. About what? About everything, I said. About how we got here. She didn't look at me. You don't want to talk to me. You've made that clear. That's not true, I said quietly. I do want to talk to you. But every time I tried, you shut me out. You treated me like I was nothing. Do you know how much that hurt? She looked up then, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe sadness. I didn't mean to. But you did, I interrupted gently. You told me I wasn't the father you deserved. You chose your stepdad over me. And I get it. Maybe he's great. Maybe you like him. But that doesn't mean I stopped being your dad. She looked down at her hands, silent. I've made mistakes, I admitted. Maybe I pulled away too much. Maybe I made decisions you don't agree with. But I did it because I didn't know how else to protect myself. You have no idea how much it hurt to hear those words from you, to feel like I didn't matter to you anymore. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. I didn't mean it like that. I was mad. And you were always so serious and quiet after the divorce. It felt like you didn't care anymore. I felt a lump in my throat. I care more than you know. But I didn't know how to act when you pushed me away. We sat there in silence for a while, neither of us knowing what to say next. It wasn't a magical moment where everything got fixed. Far from it. But it felt like the first time we were actually listening to each other, instead of fighting or shutting down. Before I left her room, I said, I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. You're still my daughter. I still love you. She didn't respond, but she didn't tell me to leave either. It had been a few weeks since I told my daughter the truth, that I wasn't going to keep chasing after someone who didn't want me in their life. Things were quiet, but not in a peaceful way. She still came over for her visits, but it felt more like a formality than anything else. She stayed in her room most of the time, and I let her. I wasn't going to force her to be around me anymore. Then, out of nowhere, everything changed. It was late one Friday night when my phone rang. I was half asleep, and for a second I thought I was dreaming when I saw my daughter's name pop up on the screen. She never called me, ever. I sat up quickly, my heart pounding as I answered. Hello? Her voice came through the line, choked with tears. Dad, can I come over? I was instantly on alert. What's wrong? Are you okay? Please, she whispered. Can I just come over? I don't want to be here right now. I didn't ask any more questions. Of course, I'll come get you. When I pulled up to my ex-wife's house, my daughter was already outside, sitting on the curb with a backpack next to her. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, like a kid again. Her face was blotchy from crying, and when she saw me, she stood up quickly, wiping her eyes. What happened? I asked as she climbed into the passenger seat. She didn't answer right away. She just stared out the window, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Can we just go? She said softly. I nodded and started driving. We sat at the kitchen table later that night. I'd made her some tea, and she held the mug between her hands like it was the only thing grounding her. She was quiet for a long time before she finally spoke. Stepdad's name cheated on Mom, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze. I hadn't expected that. What? She swallowed hard and looked down at the table. They had this huge fight tonight. Mom found out he's been seeing someone from his gym. I guess it had been going on for a while. She yelled at him and he lost it. I clenched my fists under the table. Lost it how? Her lip trembled, and I could see the tears welling up again. He started saying all these awful things. About her. About me. He said Mom was pathetic for trusting him, and he called me a spoiled little brat. He said I'm just as worthless as she is. I felt my blood boil. My chest tightened, and I had to take a deep breath to calm myself down before I spoke. He said that to you? She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. Yeah. He told Mom he's sick of playing dad to someone else's kid, like it was some chore for him. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what I was hearing. I didn't know how to feel. On one hand, I was furious. Furious that this man, who had been so smug and perfect in her eyes, had shown his true colors. On the other hand, I felt a dull ache because this was exactly what I had feared. My daughter had built him up as the perfect father, the man I could never measure up to, and now he had torn her down. Why didn't you call your mom? I asked gently. She was crying, she whispered. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to hear them fighting anymore. She looked up at me then, her eyes red and swollen. I didn't know where else to go. The words hit me harder than I expected. For months, she had treated me like I was nothing, like I didn't matter. Now, when her world was falling apart, I was the one she turned to. I wanted to comfort her, to wrap her in my arms and tell her everything would be okay. but I couldn't ignore the months of hurt she had put me through, the way she had chosen that man over me, thrown me aside like I was replaceable. The next morning, she came downstairs while I was making coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept, but she was calmer. "Dad," she said quietly, standing in the doorway. I turned to face her. "What is it?" She looked down at the floor, wringing her hands. "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked, though I already knew. "For everything," she said. Her voice cracked. "For saying all those awful things to you. For shutting you out. For treating you like you didn't matter. I was wrong. I thought he was, I don't know, better, I guess. I thought he cared about me more than you did. But he doesn't. He never did. I was so stupid." I stared at her for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Part of me wanted to forgive her right then and there. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that we could put everything behind us. But another part of me couldn't forget the months of coldness, the way her words had cut me to the core. "I'm glad you're starting to see the truth," I said carefully. "But it doesn't undo everything that happened, daughter's name. You pushed me away. You made me feel like I wasn't good enough to be your dad. And now, just because he showed his true colors, you want to come back?" Her eyes widened, and she looked like I had slapped her. "I'm not asking for you to fix everything," she said, her voice trembling. I just want to try again. I want to have a relationship with you. Please, Dad." I shook my head slowly. "I don't know if I can do that." "Why not?" she asked, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "Because it's not that simple," I said. "I spent months trying to be a part of your life, and you shut me out. You treated me like I was nothing. I can't just forget that." "I was wrong," she sobbed. "I didn't know what I was doing. I was mad at you because of the divorce, and I took it out on you. I thought stepdad's name was better than you, but I was wrong. He's awful. He doesn't care about me. But you do." I looked at her, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. "I do care about you. I always have. But I can't keep putting myself in a position to be hurt again. I need time, and you need to figure out who you are and what you want." "So that's it?" she asked quietly. "You're just going to give up on me?" "I'm not giving up on you," I replied. "But I'm not going to let you hurt me again. If you want to fix this, it's going to take time. I need to see that you actually mean it, not just because things fell apart with him." She wiped at her face and nodded, though I could see how much it hurt her. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll prove it. I promise. So Reddit, please help me. Should I forgive my daughter,